My name is Rachel Garten. I'll be chair of this session. So nice to meet everybody. Excited about the presentations we have coming up. So our first one is by Takenori Murakami on negative form of the perfect ta in Vaiphei. So I will go on mute and take it away.
Can you see my slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, then I'll start. Today I'll talk about the negative form of perfect ta in Vaiphei. And this is a short introduction to this Vaiphei language. This is AOV or the Northern Kuki-Chin language, and it's agglutinative. And verb always agree with person, and there's no grammatical gender. And it has verbal root change as in other Kuki-Chin languages. And past tense is distinguished from perfect aspect. That is very peculiar about this language. And there's no generic R sound, means this is G Kuki language instead of R Kuki. And relatively few phonemes and tones are there. And spoken mostly in Manipur and very few in Jagai and Chib Hills in Myanmar. The total population is about 50,000. And typologically, this is not so interesting language. And this is syllable structure, and there are two tones and up to three triphthongs are out. But this triphthong never followed by consonant. And if we set this e and u like glide as consonants, there's no triphthongs. It's a matter of just definition. And this is phonemic inventory of consonants. It's pretty simple compared to other Kuki-Chin languages or like Tibeto-Burman languages in general also. And this is my proposed inner classification within Northern Kuki-Chin. And Vaiphei is closest to Gante, and Gante is almost identical with Vaiphei language, and it is closest to Tado. And in terms of like mutual intelligibility, Paite is the most distant from Vaiphei language. And this is the map of the language where it is spoken. And I show you, oh, what happened? Sorry? Yeah, I just wanted to show you some map. And there are three dialects, and namely this Eastern, Southwestern, and Northern. And you see in the Eastern side, it's circled with this blue circle, and in the East, there's Phairenjan village. This is considered as the oldest surviving Vaiphei village in Manipur. And those other villages are like born from immigrants from this Phairenjan colony. And in the Southwest, at the foot of Churachandpur slope, Churachandpur is in the south, in the southwesternmost area. And can I show this? Yeah. I can't. And in the north, there are sparse settlements of Vaipheis, but they are actually like mixed with Tado, and the dialect is also like sounds like Tado. And next, now we are going to start this main topic of this presentation. And the perfect in this language is marked by perfect marker ta. The sentence number one is bukanetai. I have eaten food. And this ta is the most common marker for making perfect sentence. And the basic meaning is that at a certain point of past time, the action took place, and the result of the action is influencing the present, like leads up to the present. That is normal like definition of perfect. And this sentence doesn't necessarily mean that the speaker ate up all dishes served on the table, but finished eating when he felt full, or just he finished what he thought as like enough food. Yeah. And this is contrasted by next zo. And bu kalanetai is past perfect. And you see la after this ka, first person singular personal critic. And in this case, this is translated as I had eaten food with past la. And ta can also express the experience. And this sentence can be also understood as I had the experience of eating rice. That is a basic construction. And there's another marker. Our marker this is just verb, perfective zo. And bukanezohi. I finished eating up all the food. And zo is about to finish or to accomplish the process of the state or action of the verb and works as perfective marker. And zo also implies finishing up the whole object. It means that the dishes on the table are empty now. Like finish eating up all the like possible food in this case. In some Kuki-Chin languages, zo is grammaticalized and used in the same sense as perfect ta, like in other northwestern Kuki-Chin languages. And while in Vaiphei, this is considered as still a verb, and this is considered as a serial verb construction. And bukane zo tai, and this is zo and ta are combined. And in this case, I already finished eating food with the nuance of the finished too early or declining the offer of extra portion of rice. Like in my food, they try to give you too much rice. And if you want to like finish up the dish and you don't want any extra, you can say this bukane zotai. I've already finished eating up all the food for me. And zo is used in a very interesting way with existential verb in Fala, Subway, zoahi. In Impal, Subway already exists. Subway is like fast food chain. And the perfect of the verb is not finished existing or expire, but already finished coming into being, which means we have it already. And zo is like to fulfill rather than to finish here. And if perfect ta is added after this zo, it rather expresses the speaker's unexpectedness for not witnessing its advent. Impala subway zotai means that, oh, there's a branch of subway in my Impala already, and I didn't notice that at all. So the speaker noticed the change of like from non-existent into existent state. And that is the perfect story. And this is another story about the change of state. I copy and pasted this slide from my last presentation in Kokrajao. And kwazutai. Oh, it started to rain. There's no verb for start, but in this sentence, start is not necessarily talking about perfect. Rather, it is marking the change of state, and the speaker notices that it comes into the state of raining. And when it is obvious that action is already completed from the nature of the verb, but still ta is added, it is marking the change of state or certain modality related to noticing the change or some irritation of the speaker. I talked about this last time also. And negation, it's just stem, and poor is poor. And low is also used for negating stative verbs like hilo or ulo, diklo, but generally does not appear with complex tense aspect marked verbal stem and needs another copula verb to finish the sentence like zehi diklo he. This is not correct. And negating, when we want to negate the perfect in Vaiphei, there's no perfect marker here. Bukane puai. I do not eat food, or it's the same with I haven't eaten meat. Negative of the perfect is the same as the negative of the present sentence. And for the negation of perfect aspect, there's no specific form to indicate the aspectual difference here. There's no ta here. But this is also considered as negation of negative form, perfect. But still, negative form of ta exists for different purpose. And that's the main topic of this presentation. And bukaneta poi, I stopped eating and would no longer eat food. And carefully listen my translation and explanation. And this is not like negative or perfect. This is negative form of the perfect and means differently. The speaker has stopped eating somewhere in the past and has been continuing the fasting. It means no eating state for some period up to the present, and he will continue to do so. Only this short sentence means a lot for this much information. And this sentence can also be understood as I canceled my former decision to eat. I was Like, I decided to eat in the past time and in the past point, but I just canceled it. So there are two variety of meanings with this tapuai, negative form of the perfect. And this is also not negating the past action, nor indicating the negation of the perfect, as I first talked. But the term marks the change of positive state into negative state. And we see more examples from here. And Sun Tzu Adam Zhou Tapuai. He can no longer lift up the stone. This sentence means that he was able to lift up the stone before, but maybe because he's now too old or has become weak or injured, and now he can no longer lift up the stone as he did before. That's the meaning of this sentence. This is very confusing. And Zhou here indicates that he hoists up the stone above his head or shoulder and not just picking up and lift it slightly up from the ground. It's like Zhou has the nuance of fulfillment. And again, Ta is marking the change into negative. But the word order is somewhat strange. When the negative is directly related to the action itself, then it should become before Ta, considering the basic agglutinative trait of this language. But for Ta is impossible. That is not existent. And tapua with stative verb. This tapua is also used with stative verbs. Kappa alien tapuai. My father is no longer great. This tapua is applied to stative verbs like lien, to be big or to be great. And lien either can be interpreted as physically tall or big or great in an abstract sense. And in this case, it is likely that the speaker is the son of the father. And now he's grown up and he sees that his father is no longer taller than him. Or maybe his father was once a respected man, but went bankrupt or has fallen to miserable condition, which means he ceased to be great and is no longer considered as great father by his son. Yeah, and there's also tapua plus copular verb. And this is close to stative verb constructions. And amaziktu simtei ahitapuoi. The first ama is the same as the independent pronoun for third person singular, but here this is used for possessive, zero possessive form. And in this case, this ama is, this ma part doesn't fall in the tone. And his writing is no longer legible. This tapua is continued after the copular verb he. And it means that he used to write legible letter in the past, but maybe now he's too old or his hand is injured for whatever reason. His handwriting has become illegible. And this can be also understood as the problem of the paper on which he wrote. Maybe the piece of paper or the page or notebook has become too old and letters on the paper have faded out beyond recognition. But anyway, this is marking the change of state into negative. This is also a short summary, not negative perfect, but negative form of the perfect. Generally, the negative perfect is in conference with negative present, and the perfect marker that does not appear. I already explained this. Tapua never means negation of ordinary perfect, like haven't done yet. And tapua is used for discontinuation of the past repeated action or certain state which was varied in the past. And puata is impossible, and tapua, pua, or tapuaro, like double negative is also non-existent. And the ta works as a marker of change, and it is not negated by the following four. And negative of the perfect, the next one is also stative verb, t-shirt to enta boy. The t-shirt is no longer yellow, means this t-shirt's color is faded and no longer looks like yellow. And it means that the state of being yellow is switched to non-yellow state in the past. And the non-yellow situation has been continuing since then. And this tapua has even like future or subjunctive forms. We look at these examples. Zelon, lelon, he, hopi, gopi, in, susie, tapona. This bridge would never be destroyed by or in stone. The bridge was destroyed or in stone, but rebuilt or perhaps had some renovation. And then the speaker is asserting that stone would no longer destroy the bridge in future. The difference between tapua and tapona is that the latter in the negative state has not necessarily been continued up to now. Perhaps the bridge was destroyed just 2 days ago and rebuilt within 1 day, and the speaker says the bridge would not be destroyed. And both Tapua and Tapuana presupposes that the action did occur in the past and describe or predict that it is not to be repeated. And this is the scheme of this Tapua versus Tapuana. If we say this Tapuana, you can say this sentence just after the switching of positive state into negative state. In this case, destroy into no longer destroyed. No longer destroyed is negative state. But if you want to say this associate tapuai, not tapuana, you must have some interval between the switching moment to the present. And this is also true to the definition of perfect. And there's another subjunctive use, and nan deria zeta puan la. And this tapua, you would never have no more chance to go to Delhi again. This tapua subjunctive is not used as prohibitive. So this sentence is not prohibitive, but expressing the sense of predicting or like fortune telling the addressee person's future. Or the speaker had that you decided never go to Delhi and uttering this sentence for confirmation. You really won't go to Delhi again, sure. And subjunctive lies etymologically analyzed as in. This is the same as imperative in and plus la. Ta indicates that you already visited Delhi at least once. And there's no information as to whether he has continually visited Delhi until recently or not, in the case of subjunctive. And this is also the subjunctive example. The Gozen Taisak Kita Puanka, Kita Puanka. I would never let that happen again. The speaker promises not to let the same accident or problem happen again. And the ta indicates it already happened before. The subjunctive, this N to ngu is explained as sandy, but maybe a relic of the suffix of first person singular. In this case, the past trouble seems recent instead. And if we omit ta and render it like zia gotsun toisak kit ponka, it is likely that the speaker himself was not involved in the past trouble, but promising that he won't let that happen again. So in this case, this ta is somewhat related to evidentiality as well. And the next example is about canceling. Ama ataipan tapuai. He no longer starts to run. I don't understand this English, but yeah, I put the explanation under the part. And starts to run doesn't seem the action habitually repeated in the past. And in this case, it means that he canceled his run in the athletic game or forfeited the race. So he canceled the plan, or he decided to run in the past, but he canceled that. And especially when the verb involves inchoative aspect, Tapua denotes that the idea to cancel the action which was expected to be done by him or her. And next one is also related to inchoative. This is about to van van. Amon paisa pie van van topai. He's no longer just about to give the money. The English is also strange, but this is like he was showing the expressive gesture of giving money. I will give you the money, but withdrew his hands and canceled the action. He doesn't give money at all. And that indicates that it is not the first time he does such gesture, and he showed the gesture of giving for multiple times, but didn't give at all anyway. And what is strange about this one? This is short summary. Tapua expresses the action that which was done in the past, as well as the same action which is not to be done in the present and future. And Tapua also often presupposes certain period of continuation or repetition of the verb used to do, but no longer does. But no such aspect marker appears other than perfect ta. That is also strange. And ta marks the aspect of change of state, and Tapua indicates the change into the negative state, but the real scope of the negation is not evident, because this pua doesn't necessarily negate this ta. And where's the scope of this pua? Can anyone draw the tree diagram for this Tapua sentence? I can't. And there's another, oh, this example is huge. Hebrew he kobel pau upapen ahi boy. Tihi dikro ahi santa boy. It is no longer wrong to say that Hebrew is not the oldest language in the world. it's a double negation sentence using Lo and Tapua. And this is related to like in old times, people believe that Hebrew was the oldest language in the world, but it's actually not. And I just wanted to make this Dikro Tapua, but the speaker rejected, and he said that the Ahsam should be there before Tapuai. And this Sam is a very subtle verb, and it is difficult to translate this Sam. The basic meaning is stigmatized, but like Ahisam is to be and it is bad. And Achiesam is he goes, but and then that is bad, like that. And this is prohibitive with ta. And Latsapa tsu zatsat saktakin. Never make yourself feel ashamed again. Prohibitive K is cognated with negative markers in other Kuki-Chin languages. I mean, like Tedimchin K. But only appears as indicating the negative imperative in this language. This is not related to emphatic tak. And with ta, perhaps your son had bitter experience and might be still crying now. But without ta, it is just talking about the ideal situation, which might not happen yet. Like never make your son feel ashamed, not again. Ta in this sentence also has some connotation that the speaker is irritated or his expectation was betrayed by you and blaming the person. So this ta also has the function of some modal marker. And this is also prohibitive sentence using ta. But in this case, ta comes after prohibitive da. This tedata in, this don't ever go. Why you don't understand? It's blaming the addressee person. Without ta, it is just prohibitive sentence. But when ta is added after da, the prohibition message gains the color of desperation, anger of the speaker, and it is also blaming the listener's indiscretion. In this case, also ta adds the sentence that this prohibitive message has been told in the past already, but the addressee person didn't follow his prohibition, and thus it is unfulfilled and expresses the speaker's discontent too. So this ta works as a modal mark as well. And this da looks like manipulative negative da, and maybe a cognate, but this is only one D negative example in this language. And this ta in part is contracted as ta, so tsedatan is also possible. This is really complicated story, but wait, this sounds not so unfamiliar. Where have we seen this in other big languages? I hope this is not new to you at all. Yeah, the answer is Chinese and Thai. Yeah, and bu la, or in Thai, maileo is used in the same way as this tapuai or tapuana in Vaiphei. And so Kuki-Chin has it too, but the word order is different. And in Chinese and Thai, negative marker comes before the verb, but in Vaiphei, it is after the verb stem. And functionally, they are almost the same, but syntactically, it is not yet explained at all. And also, Dr. Kiryu in Japan already found this grammatical phenomenon in Thai and Nepal and Chinese also, and he wrote the 2 articles about this, but sorry, this is only in Japanese. And what about other Tibet-Burman languages? At least some other Kuki-Chin languages have this type of construction too. I found Fumao, Tano. Tano is also used like tapuai, like no longer does or switching into negative state. And Dr. Kiryu has already worked on Newal, Ma La, which also indicates in switching into the negative states. It's very similar to this tapuai. And why not try mapping this among Sino-Tibetan family if we have time, if we have enough time. So that's it. I finished my presentation here. And thank you so much. And Kipake and Tagatsari. Is it okay?
Thank you. Yes, it's great. And I don't know if anybody has any particular questions, but I did see also somebody posted something in the chat as well to an article. So I don't know if anybody has questions. Otherwise, we can look at that article briefly.
Let me tell you about it.
Yeah, sure.
This is fascinating paper, really interesting stuff.
Thank you.
And of course, if you go farther afield and look for other big languages that do things like that, you're going to eventually stumble across English anymore, which marks a shift into a negative state from a preceding, right? And that's why I posted this paper by John O'Kell and Anna Alat, which is looking at a construction in Burmese, well, a couple of constructions actually, which are also part of this. So that might be, or I mean, part of this general idea of shifting state, the polarity of a state. And the other part of sort of what's fascinating here that you kept referring back to is the syntactic oddity of it, that it's sort of hard to extract this meaning out of a set of morphemes in this order, in this language. And that, I was thinking that might have something to do, well, it probably has to do with some sort of residue of grammaticalization. So it probably has something to do with a history, either of the ta or the negative bua, or maybe both. So one question is, do you know anything about the origin of bua?
No.
Because it's pretty unique. It's not what we find elsewhere.
Tado has po, it's the same, po. And
okay, so
Vaiphei, Gante, all same.
And that's down in your little branch there, but we don't find it elsewhere in Kuki Chin.
No other.
Okay, so it's a recent grammaticalization, and that suggests that if you could maybe track down the source and figure out what the source construction was like, that might give you a clue as to how these odd scope oddities arose. And then in that connection, my last question, toward the end, you talked about another prohibitive, da.
Da, yes.
Can you tell us about that? Where does that show up?
I have no idea, because this is only one example.
Okay, here's why I'm asking, because there is a proto-Trans-Himalayan da that we find all over, including in neighboring languages, up in Naga languages and so on, which is a prohibitive prefix on the verb.
A prefix,
Yes, it's a prefix. But then in some languages like Noir, for example, it's actually a suffix. Because historically it was a prefix on an auxiliary verb, and then the inflected auxiliary got morphologized and attached to the main verb. And so you now have the sequence, the order verb stem prohibitive tense, which is exactly what you've got here. And so I wonder if this is just one last little fossil of something like that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, thank you so much for your suggestions. And your suggestions means really a lot to me.
Were there any other comments or questions that anybody had?
Yes, I have. Go ahead.
Sorry, who was going to talk?
I was just going to say there's probably more than one TA, maybe 2 or 3 different cases of them. They're not the same. That's what I was going to suggest.
Hey, is that you, Tangi?
Of course, Scott.
Hi, I didn't see you up here on my board.
Well, I won't waste anyone's time giving examples, but that's based on empirical data.
Well, obviously these two, this da and this ta, are 2 different things.
Yeah.
But the real question is, what is that second one? Where'd that come from? The perfective one, the one that has the odd scope relation to the negative. Where did that start out? Okay. Once upon a time, in an ancestral form of this language, there was a serial verb construction where you would have the verb and then some auxiliary ta meaning something, and then some auxiliary bua, which was, who knows, to get lost or something. And what we have here is something that crystallized out of that. And how we want to figure out where it came from.
In Mizo, the imperative is with the R, and the prohibitive is with an S. So S-U-A.
Yeah.
Raw and C,
Yeah, sorry, Greg.
Oh, I just wanted to ask, and I'm sorry, I know practically nothing about Kuki Chin, and I feel very bad about that. But I'm wondering what this last word E that you've glossed is, F-I-N. What's the story on that? Is that some sort of
like finish or sentence final marker. Yeah.
finite marker?
Final.
I see.
It's an old copula, and it means this is the end of the sentence.
Yeah. So historically, it is copula.
That's exactly what it. Thank you. Interesting.
Can you hear me, anybody?
Hi,
Yes.
Jim.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not only hear you, we can recognize you.
Okay.
Can't see you.
Actually, there's something very similar in Lahu to that da. It's a grammaticalization of a verb which means to put down, lay down, sta in Tibetan. And it shows perfectivity or a state which preceded some other thing. Also, the negative adverb da, so I would call it an adverb in Lahu, not a prefix, because it's a separate word. But they're quite separate things.
And this da prohibitive always requires this in imperative marker. So we can't stop sentence like theta in or thetan. So this in must be followed after this da prohibitive.
Okay, but can you put that on any verb as a prohibitive?
Yeah, nedata. Nedata in is don't eat. Nedatan. Yeah, to eat is ne, and so you can put like many other verbs before this da.
Okay, then I do think that that da really does look like the old prohibitive, just sort of tucked away in the corner of the verb.
That's a difficult question.
Well, I think
it's productive all the way around. It's productive in Bodogaro and most of the Naga groups.
we are about at time for the next one, so I don't want to go too far into the next time. But I do like the conversations that are happening. I think, Mary, are there the contact for the speakers is available, right? If the conversation needs to continue.
Yeah, we have. Y'all could put your emails in the chat too. Would work.